Will this extreme fertilizer kill my seedlings? Well, welcome back to the Mind and Soil Test Garden, and in today's video, I'm gonna test a bunch of different fertilizers, not to see how well they work, but rather to see if it's possible to over-fertilize your plants to the point of killing them. So to begin diving in, let's head out to the garage to set up the environments. So of course, any experiment has to have a control. So environment number one is gonna be 100% Pro Mix. So all I'm going to do is fill my seed cells with Pro Mix and create a few transplant holes. And for this experiment, the two vegetables we're going to use are tomatoes and basil. So for all the tomatoes, I'm going to pot them up into 6-inch seed cells, as this will give them tons of room to grow. And for the basil, I'll pot them up into 3-inch seed cells, which will also be plenty of room for their roots to expand and grow. And then I'll just pop these off to the side as we move on to the next environment. Now for environment number two, I'm gonna go 66% Pro Mix and 33% compost. Now don't you worry, things are gonna get really intense in just a minute, but this is gonna be a very mellow, very mild environment. The compost is starting to add some nutrients, some microbial life, all that good stuff, but this absolutely won't burn the plants. I just want this environment as a reference point for when we begin adding much stronger fertilizers to the mix. Now for environment number three, we're gonna do 100% Pro Mix plus half a cup of 444 organic fertilizer. So this is already way more fertilizer than I would ever use in this small of an environment, but it is natural and organic. So my hypothesis here is that it won't burn the plants. They'll put on a little bit more growth, but really only what the plant is capable of putting on. Now for environment number four, as you can see, I've already got them planted up here, and I'm gonna go with a half cup of Miracle-Gro plant food. Straight chemicals. Now what I do want you to know, this is way more than they say to use on the instructions. And again, I'm not looking for optimal growth. I'm much more curious about what happens when you over-fertilize your plants. And this is a liquid fertilizer, so I'm mixing it in with water. I'm gonna add some of that water to the seedling mix and pour the rest of it onto the tray. And both of these seed cells will begin wicking that water up while we finish the rest of the environments. Now, just in case that wasn't enough Miracle-Gro plant food, for environment number five, we're gonna double it to 1 cup of Miracle-Gro plant food. Now, having just done environment four, this is absolutely ridiculous, but hey, I'm curious to see what happens here. Got nothing to lose. And from a nutrient perspective, it's a 24/8/16 synthetic fertilizer. So super, super strong, way stronger than that 444 organic fertilizer that we used just a second ago. Beautiful-ish. And put this to the side for it to continue absorbing. Okay, environment number six is going to be half a cup of ammonium sulfate. Now this is basically like a bomb that I'm putting into the soil here. It does have a 4.6 star rating on Amazon, so people clearly have been having success with it. And from an NPK perspective, it is a 2100, so basically straight nitrogen. So I'm gonna be really curious to see if it massively increases growth or potentially harms the plants. Okay, environment six is all good. Let's put these to the side. And for our seventh and final environment, we're gonna increase the dosage and go up to 1 cup of ammonium sulfate. Again, you would never use this amount of ammonium sulfate, so don't take this as what to do, but rather let's see what happens when we do use an absolutely excessive amount of it. Whew. So, environments are all set. And one thing that I want to just quickly share with you is that when I'm running these experiments, there's different variables that I'm curious about and things that I'm looking for insight on that are very specific. But then there's also things that inevitably come up that totally surprise me, that I wasn't expecting about at all, but begin to unfold and I get insight on. And in this experiment, one that totally struck me over the last 30 minutes was how much I disliked working with these synthetics. Having to have a mask on, wearing gloves, all of that just did not make me feel good whatsoever. It felt incredibly suffocating. And I suppose to look at it in a more positive light, it makes it really clear to me how much I love just working with organic, natural products, being able to get my hands in the soil, getting that dirt underneath my nails. And so I am really curious to see what happens in this experiment, but I also am very aware of how I responded to that and how much it just did not align with kind of who I am and the way that I like to go about gardening. And I'll take that into account for future experiments, as well as, of course, how I go about gardening in my backyard. But nonetheless, everything is all set. Let's pop them underneath the grow lights and fast forward a few weeks for our first update, and I got no idea what that's gonna look like. All right, it is 30 days since we kicked this experiment off, and we have some ridiculous results to be going through today. We're gonna go ahead and dive straight into them, but just before we do that, if you're enjoying these experiment videos, go ahead and subscribe to the channel here and leave a little like on this video. It really helps me with getting these videos out to more individuals, helping them with their gardening. Now, to begin diving in, let's get started with environment number 1, which was our 100% Pro Mix environment. And I'd say both of these are growing really well. The tomatoes put on tons of growth, and the basil's looking really happy. And recall, this is our control in the experiment, so we want to see, does the growth increase or decrease based off the amount of fertilization? So to begin diving into the next environment, environment number 2, this is where we went with 66% Pro Mix and 33% compost. And as we can see here, the tomatoes have definitely put on more overall growth, and the basil's looking a little bit further ahead of environment 1 as well. And this doesn't surprise me at all because the compost has all kinds of nutrients and microbial life in it, which should help the plants grow better. And we're seeing that being the case in both of these environments. Now, environment 3 is where it starts to get interesting. And recall, the objective of this experiment was to figure out whether or not we can kill seedlings with too much fertilization. So for environment number 3, which is Pro Mix plus a half cup of 444, as we can see, this one has totally struggled. As a matter of fact, one of the tomato plants died, and the second one was pretty much on life support, but somehow has managed to fight back and continue growing. Both of the basil seedlings have survived and they're still growing, but clearly way behind environment 1 and environment 2. So that was super interesting to see just how big of an impact that had on them. And if you didn't see my experiment earlier this year where I tested a whole bunch of different fertilization methods, the highest performing one was when I added 1 tablespoon of 444 organic fertilizer. In this instance though, obviously I upped that to 1 cup and it's way too much. Now for our remaining 4 environments, this is where we switched from utilizing organic fertilizers to synthetic fertilizers. And I actually want to quickly take you back in time to literally 24 hours after I kicked this experiment off.
It's only been 1 day since we potted all these up, and I need to show you this. So the ones that are in the very kind of tame environments, I suppose you could say, they're doing fine, looking happy, looking like they're adjusting well to the new environments. But now the ones that I gave those seriously strong fertilizations to, so the 1 cup of Miracle Grow, and then this one here is the half cup of the ammonium sulfate, and they are pretty much already fully dead. I did not expect this to happen. I don't know if I really quite knew what was going to happen, but these have died so quickly. I guess they're not fully dead just yet, but they're certainly, quickly going in that direction. So, pretty big update for only 24 hours in. Let's see what happens next.
So now 30 days later, environment number 4 that got half a cup of the Miracle Grow, and environment 5, which got the full cup of Miracle Grow, as well as the basil babies. And as we can see, they are totally crisped up and dead. Basically, within those first 24 hours, they looked really bad, and within a few days, they were completely dead and crisped up. So I can now confirm that you can indeed over-fertilize your plants to the point of death, which I'm happy to just have an answer to that one. Now our final 2 environments, it actually got even more interesting. So let's grab both of those. So here is environment 6, where we used half a cup of ammonium sulfate, and environment 7, which got the full cup, as well as the corresponding basil plants. And so given that both of these are more intense than the Miracle Grow, doesn't shock me that they've all completely died and crisped up as well. But what's really interesting is when we look really close at them, we can almost see all these little crystals along the soil and the plant. And so I started researching this and looking it up, and what I found was that with ammonium sulfate, if it dries up and it hasn't been completely utilized, it's going to recrystallize, which is exactly how it looked when we were setting this experiment up. And so I suspect that's exactly what has happened here. And just for fun, while figuring this out, I asked it to ChatGPT as well, and what it shared with me was that you didn't just fertilize the plants, you nuked them with a chemical cocktail of dehydration, pH shock, and salt poisoning that left behind a salty crust of ammonium sulfate as a final insult, which admittedly sounds pretty on point. That is basically like a bomb that I'm putting into the soil here. So, needless to say, you can kill your plants with too much fertilizer. There is a threshold somewhere in here where it becomes detrimental. And I'm really glad that I did this experiment because I've seen plants grow with no fertilizer at all, and I've wanted to know what the other end of that spectrum is. And so one thing that I'm going to be working on over the course of this gardening season is really figuring out what is the right and most impactful amount of fertilization and when to be doing it in order to allow our plants to put on as much growth as possible. So if you want to see those experiments and all those results, then go ahead and subscribe to the channel because I'll be launching all those videos through this season and into the fall. But other than that, I've got my learning from this experiment. I hope that you've gotten one as well. I'll catch you on the next video, and in the meantime, you might enjoy this video right here.